In this series, Process takes you behind the scenes and into the creative mind of artist and musician Stanley Lake, co-founder in 1988 of Quebec's Tour des Arts. In this video, we will witness the process of transforming the vase made in video A into a pond spitter. And now, heads up with Stanley Lake.
I'm going to go in and see how, oh, it's nice and moist. So from my hand on the inside, I'm going like that. I hope you can see this, but there I am. Pushing out. Of course, there are limits to how far you can push, and you go slowly. Let's make sure you can see this. It really gives, it's like blowing the spirit into the form, giving it that life force. And I've been pushing clay from the inside almost ever since maybe 3 years after I started with clay. Just I was teaching at a university, and a fair amount of my students, they were faculty member wives, not a fair amount, but a few. And they were pregnant, and I just loved that shape, so I would put these bellies on the form, not by attaching clay on, but by taking the form and pushing out. And I did these not necessarily on figurative forms, on more of my sculptural forms at that time. And it's just a technique that has stayed with me. A lot of fun. So you can see that flat surface and that pushed out surface, just the difference. So I'll go back and do the same here. The other side. And as a kid, when I would go to museums, I'd spend a lot of time in the African section of the museums where they had masks, and then started collecting some books of the mask of the different regions in Africa, and masks that were used for different ceremonies, and just phenomenal, powerful. And that certainly has been an influence on me in my mask making. And it's like in the Western culture, you don't often have men decorating their faces, and so in my mask making, I often get into the headspace of, oh, what is this? What is this person with this mask? What ceremony are they preparing for, and how will that person decorate themselves for that ceremony? And then I just go about. It frees me up to decorate when I have that in mind. So now I'm looking for some symmetry from one side to another. Hope my head isn't getting in the way too much. It gets tiring on the hand after a while, but let's continue. All right. You can see the effect, how it so changes what I'd consider a flat surface to this more attenuated surface here. Then there's some important lines that we have on the face. Often there's a line, this triangulation, this triangle that happens around here. So just, and this also by putting it in, and also pushing a little bit. Remember, you need that clay somewhat moist. If you have to make it more moist, just shoot some water on the inside, let it set, and on the outside. So by pushing in, it's going to accent this area. Kind of neat, the jowl. I'm going to come back and work that mouth. That's not what I love about this piece so far. Okay. I'm sure I'll come back to it before I'm done. It's often a little line for the nostrils. And there's often also, not always, this line here. Great. Well, great. That's me saying it's great. It's great. Just to let you know, this is great. Well, come on. It's pretty good, as Larry David would say. Pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to do finish up with the eyes. So I'm thinking, I'm looking at this straight on here at this level, and I like my eyes. I think I mentioned this in another video. I like my eyes not necessarily dead on, but kind of coming in a bit, the intent. So I'll do it a little off center, a little cross-eyed a bit, like the person is saying, what's going on there? That's fun. So, well, fun for me. And now I'm going to and I think also I'm going to put some a ridge there. I don't always do this, but on these larger forms, it's kind of fun. So again, I'll take a piece of clay, get it started to roll out as a coil, roll it out. Again, my surface is somewhat damp, so I don't get the piece drying up too much. Often, to get a round coil, you work the edges through, and then you can go back and do the center, and that'll help keep it somewhat straight. So this is fun. I used to do crowns like this. Actually, this will be fun. have that surface, I'm going to slip and score. And bring this clay up into this area. You see this furrow that we're starting to create here. So I'll work that original line into that new coil of clay. And I'm creating this cavity. Oop. Yeah, the light coming from that direction is creating these shadows. It's a little hard to see what I'm doing on that side. But once in a while I wet my tool just so it slides a little bit more. Let's see what would happen if we add a little bit more clay. Right there. Sometimes, you're moving your fingers around and a little indentation like that. Say, oh, that could be interesting. Just a little more accent there. Things arrive and you have to look at them and see if you want them there, and that becomes part of your vocabulary, or you get rid of it. And I'm also going to bring that line out. Okay, I guess I'm going to get rid of that line. Let's see how this is. It gives you a nice, somewhat of flow into the rest of the head. The brow coming up into the forehead. So what I'm going to do now, I talked about in another video, I use a lot of, can't see that, there you go. So this is just my white clay, white porcelain, that is in a slip form, so a fair amount of water with it. And these two, the white porcelain and my stoneware, they work well together. If I apply this onto this surface as a slip or an engobe effect, I'm using it like a paint, they marry well. There's no problem in the firing. So it's a great way to decorate things, and I use it a lot in what I do. So I'm gonna draw a line here. Where I want this. I'm going to keep this part, the natural clay color, and the rest is going to be this white slip. And it creates a really interesting contrast. It's almost like also part of my museum experience as a young kid, besides just the African mask that I love to watch. I was just, as any young kid I think would be, drawn to the whole display that they had. This was at the Cleveland Museum of Art. And the whole display they had of knights in armor, all the swords from that era, and a horse with their protective netting, and the armor that the knights would wear. And so I was just like, whoa, I love looking at that. And these tend to remind me of these when I do this, remind me of that when I do this decoration, because it's like this headgear that those people, the knights, wore. It reminds me of that. It's often when I'm making masks, I don't necessarily have anything in particular in mind as I make it, but I will, after I've made it, I will step back from the image that I just created and be able to note certain cultures that influence that come out in the form, in the making of the mask. And just thinking of the brain as this great repository of imagery, and I can, imageries that I've seen. And I like a little pretty piece of paper here. I should have done this first. Oh boy, there we go. There you go. Good weight to it. So then I step back and say, oh, that mouth or that nose or those eyes, or they come from this culture, that culture. My influence has been in my mask making is pre-Columbian art and Native American art, African mask making. So all these images are stored and come out in my forms. People say, what's your influence? And I say, well, the nose is from here, and it depends on the piece. So you can see this it's a nice little contrast here. And I like this rough texture, because what I'll do is finish this off with a red iron oxide wash, which is powdered red iron oxide in water, and I apply it and then I wipe it off before the firing, so that's my colorant. And it plays with the surface, this roughness. You could have this slip screened and smooth, but I like the texture, and sometimes I like it even more. I'll just build it up, but not so much on this one for the moment. Okay, there's all kinds of finicking you can do, and that's fun. So there you have that. I'm going to make sure this line is somewhat clean. And redo this a little bit. There you go. I don't worry too much about this white clay here, because the red iron oxide is going to color that up a bit. So there you get the form with the contrast. I'm sure tomorrow when I look at this, I'll do a few things to it. What I like to do now is let's see, find out where the center is. I like to do some decoration on the back, and I certainly lean towards trees. I mean, I have trees all over. I love the willow tree, so my tree decorations, and this is a piece that is going to be outside, so some relationship between the piece, the pond spitter or garden goddess, and the surrounding forest. What I'll do is I'll do a tree motif on the back. I'll also put holes in the top, and those will accommodate branches. That'll give a greater dimensionality, a greater height to the form, and it's almost, for me, representing, here's this tree that I've drawn, and then the outgrowth of branches coming off of the form. I've used in these parts, I've used wires and different metal pieces, but I love the branches, so I'm always looking for branches around the property. So here's my centerpiece, and just do a trunk. I always loved the willow tree, so these branches do tend to go downwards in direction, kind of hanging. Work the other side. It's a nice contrast, huh? Very simple, but fun. I find very effective. I'm lacing this whole demonstration with my personal opinions, but I do have some, I guess, after all these years. I started in 1969 was the first time I touched clay, and it was in my last semester of university at Miami University in Ohio. And I had seen some pottery at Christmas time. A friend made some, and I just looked at it. It was like looking at something for the first time and saying, "Oh, whoa, that's pretty neat." And I went back. I was a political science major, going towards urban planning, and I signed up for the course, which was closed. It was already full, so I talked to the professor and said, "Look, I really need to try this. If it doesn't work out, I'll drop out after a week, which gives me a chance." And he said, "Fine." And we all got our blocks of clay, and really within 5 minutes of touching the clay, there was this epiphany of like, wow, I'm a potter, and I'm going to live in a country, in the country. And I was addicted. You need, I feel that to be an artist, you need that addiction, artist, musician, that addiction, that's what you have to do. You wake up in the morning, that's the thing that you have to do. And if that's the thing you have to do and you have some talent, which most of us do, you will hone your skills, and you will be able to achieve some level of goodness, of good in your process. And if you have the great gift of things, of skills and talent, then you could become great at what you do. But you need that perseverance of work and creating and making, and that's where you have to be. That's what you have to do each day, because that's the driving force in your life. And you're lucky. You're lucky when you find that. I feel very lucky, very privileged. Okay, so that's it for today. I'm going to put 3 holes in the top. Just where I think I'm going to put the branches. These I can make a little bigger later. So you can imagine, if you can imagine like a branch coming out from here and different parts of the branch. Usually these are dead branches that I find on my property, or I'll cut off some trees that are already decayed, and that just brings it out like that. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll let you know in May when this puppy gets fired. You can get to see the finished piece, and that'll be part D of this process. Okay, thank you very much.
So we hope you enjoyed this presentation of Process. And please feel free to hit the like button. In the final video of the Heads Up series, Stanley will demonstrate the firing process for us. And please check out the links below for other videos brought to you by the team at Cooking Minds Production, Quebec. And as always, thank you.